What's going on, Junkie Nation? Gorgeous George and Goes are back with another MMA superstar. This time we get to talk to Anthony Lionheart Smith, who's got a big fight coming up here in Las Vegas. UFC 277, the opening bout against Ankalaev. What's going on, Lionheart? Good to have you back.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me. It's been a while.
It has been. I think we caught up with you after Quintet.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Here in Las Vegas. So thank you so much for squeezing us in. And I know you athletes must have, there's so many podcasts now. I mean, hell, you're part of like 2 or 3 of them, but you know what I mean? Like there's so many nowadays that I bet you guys get pulled in every direction leading up to the fight. Do you enjoy it, or has it just become too much now that everything's blown up?
No, man, I've kind of gotten used to it. If it wasn't for the media and you guys, I wouldn't have ever probably gotten my broadcasting side of it going. So I like it. I don't do as many as maybe I used to. Just because I'm just stretched thin on time and I'm in camp, and I got the podcast with Bisbing and the radio show, and it's just, it gets to be a lot. But yeah, man, I don't mind it at all.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like standing on, on this side of it, wearing the sharp suit and tie, like Go said, have you learned a lot more about the game than you anticipated when you took these endeavors on? Your former colleague of ours on SiriusXM, podcasting with Bisping, and of course the work you do on ESPN.
Yeah, I never expected to, to work the desk and it make me a better fighter. But there's not that often that when you're just an athlete or you're just a fighter that you break down fights that have nothing to do with you. So, and I mean that, like, if I'm breaking down just to throw 2 people out there, we'll say Corey Sandhagen versus TJ Dillashaw. I'm never going to fight either one of those guys. So it's not how I would fight them. I got to watch Dillashaw, and I got to figure out, if I'm Dillashaw, how do I beat Corey Sandhagen? And it's not like, how would I beat Corey Sandhagen? It's like, if I had the skill set and the abilities and the athleticism and the wrestling and the striking and the stance switches and all that stuff, with his skill set, how does he take advantage of Corey Sandhagen's? Which means I have to break down Corey Sandhagen's as if I'm Corey and I have his skill set and I'm fighting Dillashaw. So, I feel like my fight IQ has gotten much higher, and just really learned a lot more about the game and how other people do it. And I've just gained a huge respect for athletes that maybe typically I wouldn't. And I use Corey Sandhagen as an example because I probably would have never, had I not broke down his fights so many times and like just sat in my hotel room in whatever city we happen to be in and just be in awe of his work. Like, it's one thing just to watch the fight, but to break his skill set down and how he deals with problems and what his mentality looks like when he gets into firefights or when things aren't going his way. How does he react? How does he change his game? I wouldn't have maybe been as big of a fan of him as I am after breaking him down and seeing how fantastic he is.
Heck, you may have just answered my next question. I was going to ask something similar, like, when's the last time you broke down a film or just watched the fight and then went back and saw what they did? So either pre or post fight, and then said, "You sneaky devil," like that. Like, not too many people do that, and maybe even applied it to your game. Would it be Corey, or can you think of another example?
I think Charles Oliveira is a perfect example. Charles Oliveira has made me work so hard. Like going into the Gaethje fight, and going into the Chandler fight, and going into the Dustin Poirier fight. For whatever reason, Charles Oliveira is just a guy that, you break him down in the Chandler fight, and you're like, well, Chandler has the ability to make the fight happen wherever he wants it to happen. He's such a good wrestler that if he wants it on the ground, it'll go to the ground. If he doesn't want it on the ground, it's going to stay on its feet. He's got crazy explosion in his hands, and Oliveira gets hit. He's very hittable, and that's been the big knock on him recently. And then the fight happens, and you're like, well, how did I miss that? Like, how did I miss the clinch stuff and the trip stuff, and then the control if they do end up in the ground? And then where the hell did this power come from? You know what I mean? Like, he hasn't been the one-shot knockout guy. So, like, where the hell did that come from? And then, then it rolls into the Poirier fight, and you're like, oh, okay, this is where this train ends. Like, Poirier is a great grappler. He's good in the clinch. He's got crazy power. He's durable. He fights well out of both hands. This is the Dustin Poirier fight. And that happens. You're like, Jesus Christ, what is going on here? And then the Gaethje fight, you're like, all right, absolutely. Gaethje, Division One All-American, crazy power, really durable. Even if he takes shots, he's gonna land big shots. And then, Oliveira, kind of drops him with, like slumps him with one. So like watching his evolution and watching him get better, it's starting to pick and see like, okay, how is he like dealing with all these problems that in my head he shouldn't be able to deal with in every single fight. He's adding a little bit to it, and I'm like trying to really dig in and find these nuances and figure out what I'm missing.
Man, what a great compliment to give a fighter that had his struggles early on, whether it
Mhm.
was weight misses or just some key losses that he had in his career, and he's turned it around. And I'm hearing so much praise for Charles Oliveira in the last few years, and especially in the last few months from high level fighters like yourself. And now hearing this, man,
Well, and to go from a guy that we've seen broken. We've
yeah,
seen him break. We've seen him, I don't wanna say quit, like, but you can actively quit. You can stay in there and hang tough, but you're not really trying to win anymore. You're just trying to survive it and get out of there. We've seen him do that. So that then to see him get into the Chandler fight where he's hurt really, really bad, and then the Poirier fight where he's hurt really, really bad, and he hasn't been shook in a long time,
mhm,
and to be in there with a guy like Gaethje and not be gun shy after some of the things that he's been in before, um, that's hard to do. It's hard to change that, once I don't know what changed for him. Um, my biggest regret is that I don't speak Portuguese because I would love to sit and just pick his brain for an hour and just figure out like what happened in your life, what changed, what motivated you, what made you who you are now that you weren't before.
yeah, he's definitely a freight train. And if I can add to what you were saying, like I remember like 4 fights ago, the Ferguson fight, just him picking up a Division 3 national champion and just like,
Yeah.
taking the wrestling to him. And I was like, I've always said that about the wiry guys, the long, tall guys that sometimes get taken down. They rely too much on jits, because they think maybe they can catch you. If only they could do the taking down of the opponent and work the top game. And I used to say that about him. I remember saying it a long time about Damian Maya, and he worked real hard on his offensive wrestling and he became a beast. But yeah, you're right, man. Charles Oliveira's taking it to a new level. There is a problem though. Even if you know one word of Portuguese, that's one more word that he knows of English. So yeah, you're gonna have to get a
I
good
know it.
chance. He doesn't know a lick, man, of English.
None, none.
I wish he would learn it because I think he'd be really even come off more charismatic and become even a bigger star. But somehow he's pulling it off. He's dyeing the hair. He's getting the finishes. He's beating big names. So, but let's get back to you. I gotta tell you something. Mad respect for your activity in this sport. Just even if you go back 2016, 17, you stayed busy, pal. And I handle the rankings for USA Today and MMA Junkie, and I've noticed as of late when I'm going in there and just kind of making sure, cleaning things up, not many fighters fight more than twice a year, but yet you at least do that. What do
Mhm.
you attribute that to? Like, you just got good genes, or
No, I just get bored. I don't do well when I'm spinning my wheels. I just idle time is not my friend. I just get fat and out of shape, and I just, I do so many other things as well. That when I'm not competing or I'm not in a training camp or got like a focus, then I just go all in on the other stuff, and I can't allow myself to do that. So, and I just love this shit, man. I still do. I'm still chasing a dream. I'm still trying to get that title. It means more to me than anything. So, um, sitting and being idle, I don't like watching the division pass me by. I don't like opportunities passing me by. So, any chance I can get in there, and if it's going to continue to push me towards the title, then that's what I'm going to do.
well, this is definitely the fight that can do that. Unfortunately, MMA fans and media can be fickle, and it seems like they've put a lot of attention on Ankalaev, like he could be it, and this and that. They're overlooking your 3-fight win streak, your pedigree against the top fighters for the last 5 years or so. Does that kind of put a chip on your shoulder, or are you taking it in stride?
A little bit, yeah, a little. I'm getting used to it. You know what I mean? I'm getting used to just kind of being counted out. Um, again, this is no disrespect to Uncle Life. I've got a lot of respect for his game. I really do. Um, he's good, man. He's very, very good. But he's not the boogeyman that everyone is making him out to be. He's not that guy. And if I don't go in there and do what I'm supposed to do and you know, cross my T's and dot my I's, it's gonna be a long night for me. But he's not, at least in my opinion, he's not the boogeyman that everyone's making him out to be. He's a normal guy. He's very simple in his game and his approach. There's no tricky shit going on there. He's never out of position. He likes to fight inside of his box. He wants to walk people down. He's got a really heavy and active lead side. He's got a nice high kick from the rear side. He wants to funnel you to the two. It's the same shit that a lot of people do. His approach, and he's very smart. He doesn't leave a lot of opportunities to make mistakes, but that's my job. That's my job is to go in there and I make people look bad. And that's what I've been doing for a long time. I made the best guys in the world look bad, even if they win. So I got to beat him in the gray areas. I got to get him outside of his box and make him uncomfortable and make mistakes trying to get back to his box.
Anthony, as George mentioned, a lot of people are talking about this guy and his skill set. And you're right. If you do kind of look at it, I mean, everybody's high level, high class at this point. Do you feel like fighters, can they fall in love with their own hype? You know, what people are talking about. And has that ever happened to you before?
I don't think it's ever happened to me. Because I just live such a normal, humble life. Like my wife's never gonna allow me to drink my own Kool-Aid, that's for sure. Um, so I don't think it's ever happened to me. Maybe early on, maybe I got kind of wrapped up into just the life maybe a little bit, and maybe I've partied a little too hard when I was younger, but for the most part, I think I've stayed pretty true to who I am. Yeah, I think a lot of people can though. Um, and I think that that could be Ankalaev's biggest mistake is I'm different, man, than you can watch it on tape, you can watch it on film, you can break me down on paper, and it maybe in your mind it might be the easiest fight. But when I'm in there and you're in front of me, the things that you think you see are not there. And there's gonna be a lot of shit going on uh that are nuanced, that are gray area stuff that a lot of people like no one who's beat me or no one that I've beaten has ever asked to do it again. It's never fun for anybody. It's just different, and I think he'll figure that out. So I think he could get wrapped up into I'm the next title contender. I just got to get through this guy. It's not a big deal, you know. And you've seen he's kind of blown me off a little bit, which is fine. Which is fine.
Anthony, I'm not sure if you follow other sports, but the Los Angeles Dodgers have a pitcher named Clayton Kershaw.
Hmm.
He just went on the mound after doing this for years and years. This whole process, he actually went up on the mound and he said he looked around the stadium and he soaked it all in. And he said he had never done that before. What about you? Have you had that moment yet? Like, do people have to remind you how badass you are, what it is you do for a living, how cool it is? When's the last time you soaked it all in?
That's so funny you say that. Um, I had tried a couple times before when I first started in main events. One of my coaches, I remember, I think it was my first main event, was fighting Shogun in Germany, and I remember he had the security take me to the tunnel and showed me the arena so that it wasn't the first time that I seen it when I walked out with all the people and stuff. So then I started doing that every single time I had a main event that I would walk out into the arena. I'd have security take me to a tunnel, and I'd kind of sneak through there behind the curtains, and I'd just stand there for a couple minutes and just take it all in so that it was familiar when I walked out. Um, and then I stopped doing it. I don't know why. I just, I got wrapped up in my preparation. And then the first time I like really took it in for the first time was when I fought Jimmy Crew at that first event back with fans, the first full event. Um, and like, if you go back and watch the walkout, it was incredible. It was like probably one of the greater moments of my whole career. Just the crowd reacting to everything, and they were dancing to the music, and like I think I'd fought so many times without fans, and my profile I think had raised a little bit with just working the desk and fighting in these, I had fought like with no fans, so I wasn't used to it, and just like the pop that I got when I walked out, it was like second to none. So that was probably the one and only time that I was like I tried before, and it just wasn't I don't know, it didn't feel real. And then when I fought Jimmy Crute in Jacksonville, I was like, holy shit.
Good stuff. Anthony, when is going to be your debut as a color commentator at an event?
I don't know. It's a good thing and it's a bad thing. The UFC already has a fantastic crew of cage side commentators. Dominic Cruz, DC, Felder, Bisping, Rogan. I mean, those guys are second to none. So there's not really a place for me right now. And that's okay. You know what I mean? Like, I think my time will come eventually. That's obviously where I want to end up, but I still like doing the desk. I think while I'm still competing, the desk is probably the better fit for me as far as like full time. Just because, to be very honest, the desk is easier. Those guys cage side they are really, really working hard. They have their workload as far as the preparation and the study is probably 2 or 3 times what I have to do at the desk. So I think it works better that I'm not doing that as often, or doing that. Like, even if I started now, I wouldn't be able to do it every single time. Like, it's just the workload is super heavy. So I think maybe when we start traveling more internationally, more often, I think that maybe that might give me an opportunity to maybe sit cage side, start doing the color stuff, just because, DC and Bisping and Rogan, those guys are fancy as shit. They don't want to do all the little cities in Brazil and the little villages. So I think that might open up some opportunities just to give those guys a travel break.
Yeah, well, you're definitely gaining a lot of experience. You're doing live radio, you're doing a podcast format, and then of course live television. So I'm sure they're all a little bit different, but still they're all making you look better. Okay, let me ask you just a couple more quick ones if you have time.
Yeah,
please let us know. What's the difference between this fight coming up, UFC 277 pay-per-view? You know what time you're fighting? 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific. Actually, 7 Pacific because it's here in Vegas. So that actually
no,
helps.
it's in Dallas, Central Time.
Dallas, you're right.
Yep.
It is in Dallas. I'm sorry. So that'll be 9 p.m. Eastern. So, or sorry, Central, similar to where you're at.
Yep.
And what's the difference between the butterflies or the excitement, if you have butterflies, nerves, whatever, in this coming up fight, or even the last couple you had, versus when you fought Dave Moran, Victory Fighting Championships in February of 2008, almost 15 years ago? Like, is it all still the same? Like, do you still feel kind of like
oh God, no! I
going out
was
to
so
play,
much more nervous back then. I
What's
was
that?
so much more nervous back then.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I just didn't know what I was getting myself into. Like, back then there wasn't a lot of film on guys. There wasn't a lot of breakdowns. It was like, what's this guy good at? They're like, I don't know. I think he can grapple. Like, you had no idea what you were getting yourself into. And now it's all pretty, I don't know. I don't want to say pretty routine, but I know exactly what I'm getting myself into. I know, and honestly, being the first fight on the pay-per-view is the best place to be on the whole card, other than the first fight. And sometimes it's better than the very first fight, because depending on, fights fall out, or guys, miss weight and the card changes, then the time of the fight, the starting time changes. I know exactly what time I fight. 9:05, I'm walking. So it helps with my warm up. There's no like, you start getting warmed up and thinking there's going to be a finish, and then there's not, and it drags on, or there's the main event. That's the hardest part, is the timing, trying to time it right on your warm up. So, I don't know. I think I'm significantly less nervous and anxious now than there for a while. I went through this phase where I wasn't nervous at all. And I don't know if I'm getting older, or if it's some of the, I've been very open about just the mental health side of my life, and dealing with problems and stuff like that. Like, I think there for a while I was kind of dead on the inside a little bit, and I wasn't even allowing myself to feel anything. So I wasn't nervous. I wasn't, I remember fighting Devin Clark, and like, I couldn't have cared less. I was just in the locker room, like, where my coach is like, "Hey, you ready? Like, you good?" Like, "Oh yeah, whatever." Like, I just walked out, did the damn thing, and left. Like,
Wow.
it just, there for a while I wasn't really feeling anything. And then I think the more that I kind of dug into my own head and kind of walked through and filter through some of that bullshit, I've kind of got that fire back a little bit, where I do get a little bit of butterflies, and I don't want to say nerves, but a little bit anxious. And I find that honestly, the more anxious I get, the better I perform. So Yeah, it's definitely different. But I think the Dave Moran days were like that was genuine fear.
That's funny. I thought you were gonna say the opposite, maybe, but
No,
you
those
know,
were the scariest days, bro. Like,
this was scary. Okay.
like even in the amateur days were even worse because you would be like
You were
here
a
in
teenager
Nebraska.
back then, right?
Yeah, I was young. I was 17, 18.
Yeah.
And back then I didn't know shit about shit when it came to fighting. I wasn't very good. And you didn't even know who you were fighting. Like the amateur guys, these like today have it so good. You know, they're essentially just pros that aren't getting paid, especially the good ones. Back then, we would drive into arenas having no idea who we were fighting. It was like you showed up. It wasn't even sanctioned in Nebraska back then. So you just sign up and they would just match you guys as close as they could in weight and experience. So like until 20 minutes before, you had no idea who you were fighting. So it's just the nerves and the anxiety, because then you're staring at everybody in the room like, fuck, it might be that guy. I don't know. That dude's pretty big. And I think I seen that guy fight a couple weeks ago and he's a badass. So like it was nerve-wracking, man.
Yeah. Just a couple more here. I think this question is perfect for you. Everybody talks about judging, right? I personally don't think judging is as bad as others. And I definitely know that if we were just to wipe out the top 15 judges, we'll say, and bring in, whatever it is that people say, former fighters, former coaches, or just whatever, I think we would take a bunch of steps back. Now, do they ever get it wrong? Yes, because you can tell when someone's just 30-27 here, the other two guys are 30-27 here, and then MMA decisions is like 19-1 or 20-0.
Mhm.
Everyone's tweeting. You can tell. But then another conversation comes out of that. Well, don't let it go to the judges. Dana said it. A lot of people have said it. The fighters will push back and go, "You think we're not trying to finish?" I do
You
think
think we
that
want to fight
actually,
15 or 25 minutes? Not a goddamn chance. None of us
I
want to
do
fight
think
that
some
long.
fighters aren't trying to finish. I think they're trying to maybe steal rounds or whatever. But you're
Mhm.
the perfect guy for this because you're over 95%, I believe, in the finishing rate
Mhm.
of your fights. What do you think that there are some fighters that just don't want to be as honest as they should be, that they're not doing? Is it just like, maybe the jab's there, and then by the time they want to throw it, someone's jabbed in, so then they have to reset, and just the time keeps going away because there's a hesitancy? What would you say is the biggest detriment to the fighter that has that mentality?
I think it's some guys are hesitant and they don't. I've always been the type of fighter where I don't mind putting myself in the gray area. I talk about the gray area a lot because it's the place that nobody likes to fight. It's you're not at distance, but you're also not in the clinch. Like there's not too many guys that enjoy fighting there. Justin Gaethje would be probably the guy I say enjoys fighting there as much as anyone that you can, just off the top of my head. Um, and myself, the gray area is where I thrive. It's also the most dangerous place to be in a fight. So I think that not a lot of people like being in there. So if you're on the outside, it's easy to pick if you're Israel Adesanya. If you got a lot of like, and I'm not being critical of Israel's last performance. I was critical of the things that Israel Adesanya said leading into that performance. Uh, I'm never gonna knock a guy for going out and doing exactly what he needs to do to win and do it dominantly. Like I'm not like who the fuck am I to tell Israel Adesanya how he's supposed to make his millions? The guy's a goddamn champion of the world for a reason. So but I can be critical if he's going to convince me in the lead up to it that he's going to come out and he's going to do something different to get me to buy the pay-per-view and then does the exact same thing he's been doing. That's where I'm critical. But there's really no reason if you're Israel Adesanya, there's no benefit in putting yourself in danger if you're doing an okay job doing it the way you normally do it. Um, which is why I shouldn't have believed him. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
There was no reason to do that. So I think that that's what it comes down to. And I guess on your point of the judging, I don't think the judges are doing as bad of a job as maybe even I've given them a little bit too much crap for it. But I think they're doing an okay job under the criteria that they're given.
Hmm.
The criteria I think is the problem. Um, it's very odd to me to have a bunch of nerds in suits in an office somewhere tell me what a significant strike is. Um, I think that's the problem. So then those guys are the ones that are passing it down the line to the other judges, and they're telling them what a significant strike is. So I don't think we need to have a bunch of former fighters or former coaches or whatever. I don't think we need that to get it right. But I do think that they should open the dialogue a little bit and allow us, because we're the ones that have to do it. So if we have to go in there and we have to fight under a rule set, I think that we should have a say in the rule set. If we have to go in there and we have to fight under a criteria to try to win these decisions, if that's what it comes down to, I think that we should have a say in what a significant strike is. And for example, the clinch work on the fence, like in the Valentina Shevchenko fight, right? She was pushed up and grinded on the fence for however long it was. It was one round where she landed like 3 strikes and then was grinded on and kneed to death on the fence and then wins that round. Any fighter in the world will tell you that that is the most miserable goddamn thing to happen to you on your feet, on the fence, just got a forehead rubbing all over your face and you're getting knee in the legs and the stomach and you got elbows on your chin and it's miserable. It sucks. So then she lands 2 or 3 strikes from range and she wins that round. I think that that's under the criteria. That's correct. That's exactly how it should have been judged. As a fighter, I think if you ask 10 of us what you would you rather take those 3 strikes at range or be the person getting grinded up on the fence? I bet every single one of them would tell you they'd rather be the guy that took the 3 strikes at range.
Wow.
And I think that's just one small example of some of the issues, like I don't know. It's like, what is a significant strike? I can't answer that question for you because I don't know what the actual rule is or what the judges are told. I think that's the problem, is not all the time do us as fighters, depending on what state we fight in or what commission is overseeing us or whatever, we don't always know the rules.
All right. Well, I want to thank you so much for your time. We covered a lot. I just want to close with, I did do a scan of your social media prior to the interview. So when you were telling Goes that, your wife won't let you get a big head, this guy mows his own lawn, folks.
He does.
So,
He does. He mows his own grass.
Pretty cool to see. See, Demetrius Johnson used to do that up until a few years ago. He goes, I started having kids, so he finally got, someone to work the route that includes his own. But he used to do it as well. But I also love that T-shirt. No one cares. Work harder. Like,
I've always said that.
It's so to the point and so true. And sometimes we're hearing people, and I think I want to maybe get a sticker of that. I'm gonna have to look and see what kind of stuff you have, and just go, bro, just enough. Like, no excuses. Just go work hard. I really like it. It's to the point.
For sure. That'll fix a lot of problems that people have.
Yeah.
I used to do. I'll give you a little story before you drag this out too much longer. But I used to do like some motivational speaking and talking to some troubled youth and guys that were coming out of prison and stuff like that. And honestly, like I don't really resonate that well with those guys because that's kind of my mindset is no one cares, work harder. And I always tell people the faster you figure out that no one gives a fuck about you and like lots of people want you to do well, but not that many people want you to do better than them, the more successful you're going to be. So that mindset doesn't always, I don't know, it doesn't always motivate a lot of people. It does me, you know what I mean? I think it's a fantastic way to live your life, but I can't feel sorry for myself. I can't blame something on someone else. I can't blame other people for my failures. Like, not a lot of people like to hear that kind of stuff. So I'm glad you guys like that shirt.
I love it. And you know what? I'm going to put it at the top of, I take notes every day and stuff, things to do and notes for the interviews. I'm just going to write it at the top of every page because I'm probably going to say it to myself. I need to just read it. And so whether I say it to other people, I'm probably going to say it to myself a lot more, but it really, really was inspiring. And then lastly, of course, I'm going to call my mom and tell her I love her because I did see that beautiful picture of you dancing with your mom. And God, man, that broke my heart. So I know you have a heavy heart. And
yeah, it's gonna be my first fight without my mom.
I know. Actually. Yeah. Just I'm sure you've received a lot of condolences, but extended condolences from the Junkie Nation family for those that may not have seen that. This will be your first fight without your mom. Can you just maybe talk about like what the experience was for her on fight night? Was she someone that watched live or any of your fights, or what was that like? And if you don't mind, I
don't mind at all.
Sure.
My mom was my biggest fan, man. If it wasn't for her, there is no, obviously she's my mom, so there's no Anthony Smith, but there's no Lionheart at all without my mom. Like I was I was a troubled kid. You know what I mean? Like growing up, I got in a lot of trouble. I did a lot of stupid shit. You know, in my late teen years, I was in and out of jail, and nothing ever like super serious, but just a lot of fights and drinking and partying and DUIs and just stupid shit. And my mom was always like, she was always that person like, I'll defend you till the death. But like when it's
Nice.
just her and I, she's like, chew my ass. You know what I mean? Like she's that lady. Like my son didn't do that shit. But then like when it's her and I, she's like, you're an idiot. Um, but once I found, I kind of accidentally found fighting. Like it's that famous Subway story where I see the flyer and I'm like, amateur fight night. Like, I'm gonna go check this shit out. Like I didn't really know much about it. And I started really liking it. And like during this time, I was I'm still in and out of trouble and on and off probation. And I found this fighting thing and I just kept going back. And, I lost like my first 4 fights and I just loved it though. And there was this old man there and his name was Marty. And Marty invited me to come train at this little kind of makeshift training facility he had built on the back of his house. And he had like maybe 10 guys, like 10 amateur guys, all of them like me, like in and out of trouble. We had nothing going for us. Like most of us had dropped out of high school, no jobs, like didn't have shit going for us. But this guy like just seen this potential and just wanted to help us. But it was like an hour and 15 minutes from where I lived. So my mom every single day like funded me going from my hometown to Marty's and back every single day, an hour and 15 minutes one way every single day for like 3 years. And then when I was ready to turn pro, when I was 20, I couldn't do the driving back and forth thing. And then I was like, I was kind of spread my wings training wise a little bit. And I was still training with Marty, but then I was going to another place. And I was training, and then I was like training like a professional. I was training twice a day. So then she put herself in debt, like putting me in an apartment in Omaha, and then would drive up every Sunday and get me groceries and leave me enough money to like take care of myself for the week just so that I could train it. And like she had no fucking clue what the UFC was or like what even being successful in MMA was going to look like. All she knew was that I was finally focused on something and I was dedicating myself to something, and whatever that thing was, she didn't care. Like I wasn't getting in trouble anymore. I wasn't in and out of jail. I wasn't doing stupid shit. I was just focused on this thing that I was doing. And like at the time, I didn't even know where it was going to go. I just knew that like I liked doing it. And so I just kept doing it. And, that's, I remember, all the amateur fights and all the early pro fights, like she was there first row screaming her head off, like going crazy. And then as the fights got further away, just because, as it got more successful, they're all over the world and whatever, it got to the point where she wasn't able to watch them live anymore because she was so nervous. So it was like fight week was like her thing, like every single day. For whatever reason, she was always so concerned with my weight because she knew like I was at 85 forever and I was struggling. And even at 205, she was still always like, what do you weigh? How are you feeling? What'd you eat today? Like every single day through fight week. And then, like she was like the last person, her and my wife are like the last people I always talk to right before I walk and first people I talk to afterwards. So 5 weeks going to be a tough one for me, I suspect. Whether it's now or 2 years from now, it's gonna be a tough one, but we'll get through it, man. We'll get through it. We'll have to deal with it and go do it for her.
That's a tremendous story. Thank you for sharing that. It sounds like she had your back, what you were talking about for 3 years.
to a fault.
Coach Marty, and then even going on Sunday and doing some shopping and some laundry. Your mom's a saint, and she'll always have your back, Anthony. And I'm sure she'll be watching on July 30th as well, man. You probably made her so proud, while she was with us, and you'll continue making her proud. So, but thank you for sharing that. That's a beautiful tribute to your mom and us getting to know what she was like.
Yeah, thanks, man. I really appreciate that, and I appreciate you guys. I really do.
Thank you. We appreciate you too, and thanks for the time you gave us today. We went almost 35 minutes, a lot longer than I anticipated, but it was all golden. So we wish you the best of luck with the rest of training camp. Safe travels to Dallas, safe weight cut, and have that banger of a fight that we always get from you against Ankalaev on July 30th.
Perfect, man. I appreciate you guys. Let's catch up afterwards.
Sounds good. Take care, man.
All right, guys. Take care.